What is this tarp hiding? Maybe it is the roof of some temporary shelter? If the researchers manage to find this structure, they may stumble upon a truly monumental artifact from the era of polar expeditions. Antarctica may look like an endless icy desert, but deep under the ice, something genuinely strange is going on. Imagine this. You lose your wallet in Antarctica. Sounds like a joke, right? But no. Scientists working on this frozen continent find things that shock the whole world. Some things are too strange to believe, and some are even frankly terrifying. From mysterious creatures to ancient secrets frozen in the ice, every new discovery only intensifies the feeling of mystery. What is hiding under the snow and ice is not just unusual, sometimes it is truly scary. These are the 20 strangest finds in Antarctica that still make scientists nervous to this day. Tunnels discovered beneath Antarctica. At last, we have something that could be blamed on aliens, although, alas, no. In front of us are strange but completely earthly tunnels under Antarctica's ice sheet. And these are not tiny little holes in the ice. Some of them, in height, are comparable to the Eiffel Tower. They were first detected using radars installed on airplanes that flew over this area. Then, satellite images were brought in, and they showed that beneath the surface of the glacier, there really are voids stretching out, resembling gigantic tunnels. Do you know what conspiracy theory lovers thought first? Of course, it's a secret base under the ice, or the work of an ancient super civilization or aliens. But the truth turned out to be much more prosaic, and at the same time still very interesting. These tunnels were created not by intelligent beings, but by ordinary meltwater. Under the ice cover, water flows, like a river beneath a thickness of ice. It cuts icy passages and rushes toward the sea. Only instead of ordinary underground caves and rock, here the tunnels are inside the thickness of ice. So, essentially, these are subglacial rivers and ice caves. That's it. The mystery is solved. We can all go home. Although, admit it, realizing that gigantic invisible tunnels stretch under kilometers of ice does not exactly make things feel any easier. In one of the most remote regions of Antarctica, a new research center has opened, and its building and shape resembles a gigantic frozen figure made of ice. The design itself already knocks the ground out from under your feet. It is as if it was created to remind you. Antarctica is not fully understood and keeps too many mysteries. Scientists say that the architecture reflects the mysteries of the deep ice. They hope that research in this amazing place will help reveal new, incredible secrets of the continent. Giant sea spiders. Giant Antarctic sea spiders are definitely not what a person with arachnophobia would want to see. But for scientists, these creatures have been inspiring awe for 1.5 centuries. These sea spiders have an especially unusual way of caring for their offspring. Unlike many other species, they do not simply carry the eggs with them until they hatch. Giant Antarctic sea spiders attach tiny eggs directly to the ocean floor. Such an egg carpet lies on the seabed, and the adults guard it. Most sea spiders barely reach a few centimeters, but these giants can have a leg span of up to 50 centimeters. This phenomenon is explained by so-called polar gigantism. Among polar species of animals and invertebrates, body size can be noticeably larger than that of their relatives in warmer latitudes. Why does this happen? Cold water is rich in oxygen. The metabolism of many organisms is slowed down, and some species win by becoming larger. Creepy? A little. But from the point of view of biology, incredibly cool. The dry valleys of Antarctica. Strangely, on a continent that everyone associates with ice and snow, there are places where there is almost no ice at all. These are the so-called dry valleys of Antarctica. Here you will not see the usual snowdrifts and white plains. Instead, rocky, bare ground covered with pebbles, stones, and boulders. Sometimes you come across frozen lakes, and in summer, for a short time, thin streams appear, connecting the lakes with glaciers. The dry valleys cover an area of more than 1,000 square miles. The temperature here is constantly low. There is almost no precipitation, and so much salt accumulates that the soil becomes truly alien. Scientists believe that the dry valleys of Antarctica are more like Mars than the rest of Earth. Do you know what is most interesting? These areas are used as a natural training ground to prepare missions and technologies that one day may be useful on other planets. Colored icebergs. The icebergs of Antarctica and Greenland contain most of the fresh water on our planet. These enormous blocks of ice are not just a beautiful background for photographs. They play a key role in maintaining Earth's climate and water balance. But besides doing their important work, icebergs also know how to impress with their appearance. Some of them look as if an artist painted them, with blue, green, black, and even yellow stripes. Where do all these colors come from? Blue stripes appear when a crack in a glacier fills with water and then freezes very quickly. Air does not have time to get inside. There are no bubbles, so the ice becomes dense and bright blue. Green stripes arise when an iceberg turns over in the sea, and on its underside, water rich in algae freezes. When such an iceberg flips again, we see spectacular green layers. Black, brown, and yellow stripes are layers of sediment and dirt that the iceberg collects while it slowly slides down the slope toward the sea. The funniest thing is that all the most beautiful stripes are most often hidden underwater. We see only the tip of the iceberg, both literally and figuratively. Singing Antarctica. Now this is already truly creepy. Scientists discovered that an ice shelf in Antarctica makes sounds. No, this is not music in the usual sense, but the ice under your feet literally sings. Using seismic sensors, researchers recorded faint vibrations in the ice. It turned out that the ice continuously sounds at a frequency of about 5 hertz. This is too low for us to hear directly with our ears. And the song of the ice changes depending on the weather, storms, and the degree of melting. Wind, changes in temperature, the movement of snow. All of this is as if it is playing a huge ice instrument. A secret penguin colony. These are probably the most secretive penguins on the planet. Until 2018, a super colony numbering about 1.5 million individuals lived in Antarctica, and people did not even suspect it. The discovery was made completely by accident. Scientists were studying satellite images of a very remote and dangerous part of Antarctica, a region called the Danger Islands, surrounded by sea ice. In the images, they noticed strange traces on the snow. NASA algorithms came into play, capable of finding indirect signs of life from satellite data. And suddenly, it became clear a giant penguin colony lives there. These sly ones settled on the islands about 3,000 years ago, and all this time remained unnoticed simply because almost no one got there. This species is Antarctic, one of the smallest penguins. Adults grow to about 70 centimeters. They nest in large colonies and feed on krill, fish, and squid. A colony of ice fish. As we have already become convinced many times, the depths of the ocean are an entirely separate, little-studied universe. So much still happens there that we do not even suspect. And if you also combine the deep sea with one of the coldest places on the planet, it is not surprising that surprises still await us in Antarctic waters. So, in the Weddell Sea under the ice, scientists discovered a gigantic spawning colony of about 60 million fish. Imagine, under the ice, an enormous field of nests where life is in full swing. Fish lay eggs and arrange their personal lives as if nothing were happening. In area, this ecosystem is comparable to the entire surface of Malta. That is, this is not a few nests, but a huge hidden world under the ice. These fish are so-called ice fish. They have semi-transparent skulls and almost transparent blood. To survive in such brutal temperatures, they developed a clever adaptation. There are special proteins in their blood that work like antifreeze. They do not allow ice crystals to form. Lake Vostok. In front of you is Lake Vostok, one of the most unusual lakes on Earth. This is a subglacial lake that lies deep under the surface of Antarctica, beneath a thick ice cap. Lake Vostok is one of the largest such subglacial lakes on the planet. It lies at a kilometer depth under the Russian Vostok station in the eastern part of the Antarctic ice sheet. And here is what is especially strange. Despite the monstrous cold outside, there is liquid water under the ice there. That is, under a multi-kilometer thickness of ice, there is a real lake. It was at Vostok Station that the lowest temperatures on Earth were once recorded. On July 21st, 1983, the thermometer showed approximately minus 128.6 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 89.2 degrees Celsius. This is no longer just cold. This is the level of everything freezes. So how, under such conditions, can a lake exist at all? A combination of several factors works. There is geothermal heat under the thickness of ice, the internal heat of Earth. It warms the area to about minus 2 to minus 3 degrees Celsius, about 27 degrees Fahrenheit. The gigantic pressure of multi-kilometer ice lowers the freezing point of water. The ice on top both presses and serves as insulation from even more brutal cold at the surface. As a result, contrary to logic, the water does not turn into solid ice but remains liquid. And in this darkness, without sunlight and under wild pressure, scientists found traces of life. In samples of ice and water, they discovered various microorganisms that managed to exist in such conditions. A meteorite weighing 17 pounds. Let us move together with a group of scientists to another field expedition in Antarctica. Their task is to search for meteorites that fell here. This time, they surveyed the Niels Larsen Blue Ice Zone near the Princess Elizabeth Station. And there they came across one truly large specimen, a convex dark stone about the size of a large melon, a large cantaloupe. Turned out to be a meteorite weighing about 16.7 pounds. That is, a little more than 7.5 kilograms. For Antarctica, meteorite finds are a common thing. Over all time, more than 45,000 meteorites have already been discovered here. But such heavyweights are rare. Only about 100 of them weigh as much or more. In that same expedition, the scientists found 4 more smaller meteorites, which are believed to have lain in the ice for thousands of years. It looks like just a stone. But realizing that this little rock flew in from space and spent thousands of years in an icy desert makes it much more interesting than any souvenir. An ancient tropical forest in Antarctica. It is hard to believe, looking at present-day Antarctica, solid ice and snow. But once this territory was green and humid, covered with dense forests. About 90 million years ago, there was no ice cap here. Instead of a white desert, there existed a warm tropical forest inhabited by many living organisms. Research in recent years has brought astonishing finds. In rock cores extracted from under the ice near the Pine Island Glacier in the western part of Antarctica, scientists discovered fossilized roots, spores, and pollen. This showed what plants once grew in the region that is now hidden under ice. In the Cretaceous period, between 145 and 65 million years ago, the global sea level was about 170 meters higher than the current one, about 558 feet. The surface temperature of the ocean in the tropics reached about 35 degrees Celsius, 95 degrees Fahrenheit. The climate was so warm that even in the area of today's Antarctica, a lush rainforest could exist. In 2017, scientists extracted a sediment core from under the ice. One of the layers, dating to an age of about 90 million years, differed sharply in color from the others. It was a signal. Something here was completely not like it is now. Computer tomography showed that this layer is literally packed with remnants of roots, soil, flowering plants, ancient pollen, and spores. In essence, it was a frozen fragment of a prehistoric forest, proof that Antarctica was once green, humid, and completely unlike the one we know today. The biggest reptile egg. In 2020, scientists finally managed to solve the mystery of an unusual object found in Antarctica almost 10 years earlier. The find was a large, crumpled, oval bag, about 28 by 18 centimeters, 11 by 7 inches. No one understood what it was, and therefore it was simply nicknamed the Thing. The object did not have the clear shape of an ordinary egg. It looked like a deflated ball. But later, after a more thorough analysis, researchers came to the conclusion: this is the egg of an ancient marine reptile that lived about 68 million years ago. By the structure of the oval shell, it most of all resembled the eggs of modern lizards and snakes, with a soft, leathery oval shell, not a hard one like dinosaurs had. The dimensions suggested that the creature that laid this egg had to be huge, at least 7 meters long. The most likely candidate is considered to be a marine lizard, a mosasaur, a gigantic predator that ruled ancient seas. However, it may be impossible to determine the species with 100% certainty. But one thing is absolutely clear. This is one of the largest soft-shelled eggs ever found on Earth. An ancient sea monster. Scientists from Argentina's National Scientific and Technical Research Council worked in the northernmost region of Antarctica, conducting excavations. And suddenly they stumbled upon something unexpected. In the ground they found not a scattering of small bones, but a huge skeleton. It turned out to be a plesiosaur, a marine reptile with a long neck, which lived back in the late Triassic period, about 200 million years ago, and was especially widespread in the Jurassic era, about 150 million years ago. Before, in Antarctica, they had found individual small fragments of such creatures. But this skeleton became the largest and the oldest of all found on this continent. Geologists were especially surprised because for a long time it was believed that local rocks preserve bones poorly. That is, it seemed that, according to the textbook, there should be nothing large and intact there. But the new find changed everything. It showed that Antarctica is capable of hiding far more ancient remains than previously assumed. And of course, this only fueled scientists' interest. Now in these places, they are searching for even more dinosaurs of the past. A mysterious hole in the ice of Antarctica. Sometimes the winter ice covering the surface of the Weddell Sea in Antarctica suddenly forms huge holes. In 2016 and 2017, such a giant polynya opened in the ice cover and literally stirred up the scientific community. Such gaps in the ice had happened many decades earlier, but back then there were no normal instruments for observation. Now scientists have a whole arsenal of technologies at hand. They used satellite images, autonomous drifting buoys, and even seals with sensors, with which they attached measuring devices to record water and ice parameters. The data showed that such gigantic openings in the ice can appear due to a combination of unusual conditions in the ocean and very powerful storms with ultra-strong winds, almost hurricane force. The wind accelerates the water, mixes the layers, warm masses rise upward, and the ice in a certain zone simply cannot hold and collapses. It would seem like ordinary physics of the ocean and atmosphere. But on the scale of a continent, even one hole in the ice becomes an event that the entire scientific world watches. Blood Falls. The name sounds like the title of a horror movie, Blood Falls. And this place looks no less ominous. At the end of the Taylor Glacier in the dry valleys of McMurdo, a stream of bright red water flows out of the white-blue mass of ice, staining the icy slope as if blood was spilled on it. As if somewhere higher up at the glacier, there is a monster meat factory, dumping waste. But of course, everything is much less dramatic, though no less interesting. When the Australian geologist Griffith Taylor first described this phenomenon in 1911, he decided that the cause was red algae. But later it turned out that this was wrong. In reality, the water flowing out of the glacier contains a lot of iron. When this salty solution reaches the surface and comes into contact with air, the iron oxidizes, like ordinary metal that rusts. It is this process that colors the water and ice a red rust color. New life in Antarctic ice lake. Vostok is not only a strange subglacial lake, but also a possible reservoir of unknown forms of life. It is hidden under 4 kilometers of ice, about 13,100 feet, and it has been like this for millions of years. No sunlight, no normal exchange with the outside world. It seems that in such conditions, no one could survive. But scientists decided to check this by beginning to carefully study the ice and water raised from the depths. It is not yet possible to reach the lake directly and scoop up water with a bucket. This could contaminate the unique ecosystem. Therefore, researchers work with samples of ice that once were the water of this lake and then froze from below. When they analyzed the ice and inclusions within it, they discovered more than 3.5 thousand different DNA sequences. Among them, bacteria, eukaryotes, organisms with a nucleus in the cell, like plants, animals, fungi. Archaea, an ancient group of microorganisms. But the strangest thing is that some of the found genetic sequences did not match any known gene database. That is, roughly speaking, there are organisms there that we have never seen anywhere before. And then thoughts immediately creep in. Are these ancient forms of life stuck in time? Fragments of DNA from long extinct species? Or something entirely different? Pyramids under the Antarctic ice. Under the ice sheet, there are hidden not only lakes, but entire mountain ranges. One of the most mysterious is the Gamburtsev Range. This is a huge mountain system with a height of up to about 9,000 feet, about 2.7 kilometers, and a length of up to 750 miles, about 1,200 kilometers. And yet you will not see them, because the mountains are completely buried under about 600 meters, 2,000 feet, of ice in East Antarctica. A scale like the Alps, but everything is completely hidden. The range was named in honor of the Soviet geophysicist Grigory Gamburtsev. Not a bad monument, by the way. An entire hidden chain of mountains bearing his name. In 2016, photographs of Antarctic landscapes went viral online in which an icy peak was visible, very similar to a pyramid. Naturally, then, everything developed according to the classic scenario. A pyramid in Antarctica? It's definitely aliens. Others believe that these were traces of some ancient civilization like Antarctic Egyptians, who built pyramids even before the glaciation. But geologists quickly cooled the ardor of the conspiracy theorists. After proper measurements and analysis, it became clear. It is an ordinary mountain peak, just a very neat shape, sticking out from under the snow. By all signs, a natural formation, not a man-made structure. A wallet found after 53 years, a story almost like from a movie. A U.S. Navy meteorologist, Paul Grisham, lost his wallet in the 1960s when he served in Antarctica. The place was the American McMurdo Station. Decades passed. Of course, Paul had long come to terms with the loss and probably did not even remember that old wallet. But in Antarctica, as it turned out, things know how to wait. During reconstruction work at McMurdo Station, workers found an old wallet. It turned out that it had lain there for 53 years. Someone found the owner and contacted him. For Paul, it was a real shock to get back a thing lost at the end of the world half a century ago. A little about the station itself. McMurdo Station is a research base on the southern tip of Ross Island. It was built in 1956, and from the outside looks quite ordinary, especially by the standards of bases at the edge of the world. Over time, McMurdo became one of the largest and busiest scientific centers in Antarctica. Here they study glaciology, the study of ice and glaciers, geology, biology, atmospheric sciences, astronomy, and other disciplines. The station has its own Williams Field airfield, through which people and cargo are delivered. The base has internet, recreation areas, a medical point, and everything necessary so that staff can live and work in this harsh place. Lost continents under Antarctica. Antarctica is not only ice and snow stretched across millions of square kilometers. Under all this cold, there is a real continent with mountain chains, plains, ancient rocks, and a complex structure. If we could remove all the ice and look down, we would see a relief similar to other continents, just much more ancient and strongly deformed. And today, scientists really have a way to peek at what is happening under the ice. A group of researchers from Kiel University, Germany, and the British Antarctic Survey analyzed data from the GOCE satellite of the European Space Agency. This satellite measured Earth's gravitational field, which makes it possible to judge the structure of rocks at depth by small deviations. In simple terms, by how the force of gravity changes, you can make an X-ray of the continent under the ice. Based on these data, scientists were able to compile a map of an entire system of ancient lithospheric blocks, the so-called cratons, that is, the cores of tectonic plates. They saw folded plate masses at the stage of forming future mountain chains, ancient cratons, stable, very old sections of Earth's crust. These structures form a kind of lost continents under Antarctica, fragments of long-past geological eras hidden under ice and sediments. Such a map helps to understand how Antarctica formed, how it connected with other continents in the distant past, and how it will change in the future, especially given the modern rates of ice melting. Which point hooked you the most? The ancient tropical forest under the ice? The giant colony of ice fish? Or the lost wallet that returned after half a century? Tell us which episode you would develop into a separate film, and we will continue searching for the most unusual stories on the planet and turning them into scripts that you will not want to tear yourself away from until the very end. Thank you for watching. Hit like, subscribe to the channel, write comments, and right now watch our previous episodes on the channel with the most incredible compilations of facts and videos from all over the internet.